Welcome to Planetary Health First, Mars Next. My name is Michael Mann. I'm the host. Today, I will be serving as the moderator of Unveiling the Medtech Landscape. It's part of our Bring a Friend series. We have some amazing guests today. Thomas Cluse, venture capitalist with over 20 years of experience who is running a corporate venture fund. Charles Gilman, CEO of Hydo Health, MedTech founder. Mathilde Rasmussen, she is an accomplished leader in global health technology commercialization, board member, former Roche and Oracle Health. Christopher Coney is a senior level HIT executive and strategist. This is not scripted. The goal here is to have a highly engaging discussion, which just might get a little heated, spicy. The most interesting thing is what we might uncover together. We will reimagine healthcare. May you enjoy our Bring a Friend MedTech experience.
All right. Well, how do we want to start? That was a good one. So who would like to open up the floor? Charles, Tom, where do we go from here?
I recommend Charles.
Okay, well, it's a very, very big subject. So I'm very, very happy to be here and definitely on the panel. There's a lot of exciting things going on with medtech and robotics and AI that I think are in the news that we can talk about today. I think that the panel has quite a bit of expertise, not just from a founder perspective, but also the investor side and other interesting and unique areas. So I think to kick this thing off, maybe what we can talk about, Tom, is the current state of medtech, where you see the landscape currently, and then where you see from an investor perspective it moving on 2, 3, 4 years out from now as things change in the United States from a fee-for-service to value-based care.
Sure. That's a great topic to kick us off. Thanks, Charles. From an investor landscape, I've been doing healthcare investing now for close to 15 years. When I started in healthcare, it was called healthcare IT-enabled services. Mm-hmm. And so you're either an IT investor, IT-enabled services investor, or a pure tech investor, and then you would do medical device. I think I slowly saw that transition when ACA got passed, which is what you're referring to as the Value-Based Care Act. It had lots of components to it, and there's a lot of complexity to ACA, but I think what it did is it trended the topic of, hey, is fee-for-service the right way to get paid in healthcare? I saw a resurgence in healthcare IT. It became digital health, right? So healthcare IT became a really cool topic. It became a buzzword. There was a bit of a hype cycle to it. And I think we had a few hype cycles, right? With the pandemic, COVID-19 kind of laid the groundwork for, digital health is our saving grace for everything. But I think, call it 10 years after the fact, I think we're in a path to productivity mode, right? I think the hype is gone. I think capital deployment is down in the space. And so what I'm seeing in the industry more broadly is back to reality, right? I think investors now don't have the rose-colored glasses on. Entrepreneurs are having to unfortunately work extra hard to raise money. I think the venture capital markets in 2023 were really, really tough, both for fund managers and for entrepreneurs. But I think 2024 has been off to a great start. And I think we're seeing some key topics, some key trends that have been around for a long time, but are really paving the way for true productivity and connecting the value chain in a way that we all intended it to be connected, right? I think we're actually seeing software play a role in constructing value-based care contracts. We're not seeing a lot of value-based care as we thought we would 10 years ago. I think we thought, 80% of healthcare was going to be value-based. The the stats that I've heard are anywhere between 5 to 10% is value based. So that's still not the dominant force, but I think digital health AI is allowing us to better price things, right? I think we're starting to see pricing in healthcare. It's not possible without really good predictive analytics. To build AI, you need a good data set. So we've seen the digitization, the data set is built, and we're now incrementalizing off that data set. And I guess you would call it AI, right? The predictive piece is the AI piece. And I'm seeing a lot of that translate well. I think large enterprises are taking it upon themselves to be open-minded about it. And so look, in summary, I think we've right-sized the industry. The capital deployed has slowed down, but it's now laser focused on the things that are going to really make an impact in the industry. So anyway, open to everybody else's thoughts, but I think AI is the new topic. And, off of AI, we see precision medicine. We're seeing the transition to the appropriate pricing of healthcare. And we're seeing large enterprises kind of build things de novo now, right? So they're leveraging the startup ecosystem to build things in-house. And they're owning it, which is cool. So anyway, open to what everybody else's thoughts are, but I've been doing this for a while now and continue to be excited by the productivity of the industry now.
Matil, I would love to hear your thought. Matil?
Sure. So I'm thinking what you said, Tom, is there's a lot of truth into it. I know we've been through the hype thinking value-based care is going to be the one that fixes everything in healthcare. So healthcare, it's not quite true yet. It's 5 to 10%. Healthcare is still broken. I see that the ecosystem is still not working together to actually embrace all the technology that is there. The convergence of technology and care is still not quite, working as other industries, like let's say fintech. Like you see the innovation there, and I think that the system of the ecosystem of healthcare is doing a lot of using a lot of muscle to get there, but they're not there yet. So you don't see how payer provider works well together on many layers. And I can tell you there's a lot of innovation out there. There's huge amount of innovation. And what happened in 2020, where like companies like Livongo were sold for what, $18 billion. The market corrected itself in 2022 when capital was tough to raise, and for all this innovation actually now is being offered as an asset for sale. You see the market, and I'm going to say that in my perspective, I worked in also at Oracle, leading the go-to-market for precision medicine at the beginning of when Tom was talking about the ACA started, with the value-based care started in 2013, 14, 15, and it was too early for the market to actually accept precision medicine, to accept this innovation. There was a huge gap in the market maturity when the innovation was there. And then I worked at Roche, which is, so if Oracle was technology getting into healthcare, then I worked at Roche, which is healthcare getting into technology, building the digital health solutions worldwide. And then the market was getting ready. The education gap was huge still. There was no standards for it. And now, past 3 years, and it was all precision medicine and digital health, mostly in oncology, because that's where the money is and more knowledge is developed, that the convergence now is getting there. So we see now healthcare and technology coming together. Actually, in precision medicine, it's step by step. It's not, the whole promise of precision medicine, of the right treatment to the right patient, the right time, and the whole ecosystem is happy, is not yet there. It's going to take a little bit longer, but everything is a step forward with converging this technology and let the ecosystem actually create this access to this innovation to more and more patients and people. So we're there, but not quite. So AI is a big promise, but we're still dealing with basic infrastructure barriers to this predictive analytics. We've been working with AI for the last few years now. It's became a buzzword, but there's a lot of issues at the base of scheduling problems, EMR problems, data that is captured. Nobody still figured out to extract the data from the EMR and really create like a predictive analytics on the clinical level. But big companies realize that, so they're moving forward with this innovation and start looking at those assets that's happening in the startup health. So the ecosystem of investor, small startups, big companies, M&A, we're going to see more and more of this coming up now.
I hope so. We are definitely, I think, in addition to M&A, I think, again, just kind of an investor viewpoint, but all of those topics that you mentioned were, very, very hot kind of investor markets. I think both the public markets and the private markets were joined at the hip at one point in time. So tons of precision medicine companies entering the space, tons of public companies like pharma companies saying we're going to acquire precision medicine technologies. But I think we are we had a little bit of an ice age, right, in terms of IPOs, and then acquisition dynamics kind of peaked up as valuations creeped down in early 23. We saw some viable companies get acquired because they couldn't raise money from VCs, so they were getting picked up. But I think you're right. I think the road ahead is 2024, 25, 26 are, in my opinion, in hopes of being right here, that we're going to see better acquisition dynamics. We're going to see the public markets thrive, and again, hopefully, all these things kind of come to life. AI, though, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, that's another series in itself. So, Chris,
yeah, my 2 cents on it. I'm going to put more of kind of the provider perspective on it. My background is I'm a recovering healthcare CIO and now advisor, and I work with a lot of health systems and providers in the adoption of technology. And what I'm noticing in the industry right now is that healthcare organizations are in a very precarious point right now. Post-COVID, you see a number of the health systems are still struggling financially to recover from the pandemic and trying to create, continue to create a viable business model for themselves. You see on a day-to-day basis hospital systems across the country who are doors are closing. Hospitals in rural communities, especially, are closing, and our ability to deliver healthcare in this country is starting to diminish. Quite honestly, I'm excited and enthusiastic about the prospects of how technology will have a direct impact on the quality of care, but there is still the business of healthcare. No money, no mission, and value-based care still is very much, decades away from being a true reality in this country as well. In addition to that, we see every day the great resignation happening in healthcare. More and more doctors are leaving the profession, nurses. We're not filling a pipeline of professionals to replace them as well. And then we've got the silver tsunami that's starting to take place as well. Every day, 10,000 people are turning 65. And that trend will continue for the next 25 years. And so by 2050, 1/4 of the world's population will be over 65 years of age. And obviously, as we get older, we continue to leverage the healthcare system more and more. And so, technology has the promise of addressing some of the challenges that we have in healthcare, but technology can't be the only silver bullet as well. We've got to figure out how to continue to keep these rural healthcare hospitals and clinics open. We got to figure out how to address health disparities within underserved communities. We got to figure out how to create a pipeline of professionals to replace those who are now retiring and moving on. And we got to figure out how to continue to commoditize the cost of the of technology as well too. We look at that some of the major software platforms that are out there, and I'm not going to mention specific names, but we're talking about 8 figures to acquire these technologies, and then I have to hire a number of staff members to maintain and manage it, and it's one of the largest expenses on a healthcare system's bottom line now. Technology is supposed to drive costs out of operations, right? Theoretically, when most other industries it does. Why is it raising the cost of healthcare in our industry? So I'm very bullish and excited about all the cool technologies. I'm a geek. I'm a techie geek at heart, and I like to see AI and machine learning and robotics and nanotechnologies, you name it. We can talk all day about these things, but at the end of the day, you ask the average hospital executive, what are they getting ready to spend money on right now? They're trying to figure out how to capture more revenue, drive operations, reduce staff, and continue to provide quality access to care to their patients, and protect their market share as much as they can. And if they're not doing any of those things, it's a hard road for many companies who have some of the great technologies out there, but in some cases, they may never see true market penetration because they're not meeting these immediate needs that healthcare organizations have. So I'd be interested in hearing others' comments about that. And I go to all the conferences. I'm sure you guys do. You name them: HIMSS, Health, Vive. You see all the great technology out there. But you walk around and ask those folks, how many people actually came by my booth and talked to me that was a provider about my technology? It's very few, quite honestly. There's a lot of B2B discussions that are happening, but B2C discussions tend to be very limited now because healthcare organizations are circling the wagons, and they're limiting their investment in these technologies. And that doesn't mean the technologies aren't needed. Doesn't mean that they're not valid, but they've got to be in line with where these health systems priorities are right now.
Well, maybe this is a good segue to talk. I have a startup founder come out. Charles, you got anything you want to reply to that?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch coming at you. So you better start dodging some bullets and some hooks and punches. So
sounds good. I love it.
It's not going friendly anymore. We're gonna be frenemies from now on. I think it's really interesting because when you start looking at the hospital perspective, you're right. They're trying to protect their revenue. They're trying to protect the amount of resources and capital and really try to establish a solid framework as they continue to compete in the future. But I'm going to throw this out there. What if the payers start to focus on reducing the amount of utilization, knowing that the labor cannot match the demand? What if we had medical technologies or robotics or AI or other components that help assist patients thrive in the home to manage their chronic care diseases and reduce the total cost of care? If you can leverage those types of technologies to change the paradigm of how we care for people, that will fundamentally shift the marketplace to where it should be, which is more on that VBC side. So I would almost push back to say the reason why VBC is taking so long to implement, because they're one-piece technologies in the market, like RPM Solutions, looking at blood pressure, scales, or vitals, that don't really contribute a whole lot holistically to patients. So once you can actually stabilize patients in the home, help them help themselves without being dependent on others, that's when we can actually shift the pendulum forward. So I'm going to stop there. I'll open up to the group. I'm waiting for the bullets to come back at me.
Yeah, I feel compelled to respond back as well too. And first of all, I completely agree. Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. I think we have to push care down to the lowest common denominator and empower patients to focus on the health versus care. How do we eliminate the potential for having to utilize the high cost of the healthcare system? And so if you're a payer, absolutely, that's exactly what you want to see happen. I don't want them going to the hospital. I don't want to have to pay, these bills. However, most healthcare systems aren't structured that way. You get paid when you're sick, right? That's how we make money. Unless you are a pay-biter, which basically has a capitated model, right? That says I'm going to also provide care and I'm going to also insure that patient population. Then yes, I have a concerted interest in making sure I keep those patients as healthy as possible. Our system is so dysfunctional in that, again, hospitals are still businesses. They may be mission focused, but they're still businesses, and they're in the business of providing care. Right? If you don't come into my hospital and I can't reimburse for those services, then I don't make money, and ultimately these places close. And if I'm a payer, I don't necessarily want to, pay the high cost of healthcare, right? Because that eats into my profit margins as well. I don't necessarily have an answer to the question, other than the fact that we've got to figure out how to still make it profitable for hospitals to provide care, and for payers to deliver the resources to deliver that care, and then holding individuals accountable for trying to reduce the cost of these high comorbidity issues that we deal with. I think there's a statistic that said something like 8% of the population contributes to 60% of the cost of care. I mean, it's dramatic, right? I mean, chronic disease is what's driving the cost of healthcare. And we've got to figure out how to do that more effectively. My only comment and I'm right there with you. I'm a techie geek. I work with startups every day, and I want startups to be successful because I think they're going to be the most disruptive part of what happens in the delivery of care. We've got to get hospitals and healthcare organizations better aligned with those institutions, because in many cases, what they do is they continue to leverage the services of technology companies that still have, quite honestly, legacy platforms that they're using, and that they don't innovate as rapidly as we need to. And so we got to figure out how to crack that nut as well. So yeah, I agree with you. But there is the reality of the fact that hospitals are still struggling financially. They're still in the business. They're still a fee-for-service structure, like it or not, and we're not changing that anytime in probably our lifetime. And I'm hoping that technologies will continue to be a driver to focus on the wellness and health side of healthcare versus the managing the cost of healthcare through more evasive types of services that hospitals have to deliver.
So, Christopher, not to gang up on you, but I appreciate the directness, right? I mean, that's your day-to-day, that's the ecosystem you live in. And when I was at Providence Ventures for a number of years, I would bring lots of cool companies, digital health startups, to some of our executives, both in the information systems office as well as the strategy team. And every single time I thought I had, a solution to one of their problems, I would get pushback saying that Epic is, can already do that. They can handle it. And so you just mentioned legacy systems. And, to me, Epic feels like a legacy system. But I have to ask, where does, in your mind, in terms of what does digital health mean to a health system today, given that it feels like Epic can do all of it? So where's Epic's position in your kind of digital health strategy today?
I think we just had a mic drop from Tom.
You'll actually be surprised that I'm in complete agreement with you as well. I believe that health systems have painted themselves into a corner to some degree. When the Bush administration, enacted the High-Tech Act, and the Obama administration doubled down on funding for the acquisition of these technologies, most healthcare systems probably would not have, the Epics of the world probably would not have the market penetration they have today if it wasn't being funded by the federal government to acquire these technologies. One, most healthcare systems couldn't afford it out of pocket themselves. And the result of that, this industry also has what I call a bird mentality or herd mentality. If one system buys a product, the other, and they call the buddy down the street, he says, well, I'm using Epic, Cerner, you name your poison. The other one buys it too. And before you know it, everybody's buying the same solution. And what we've allowed to happen is a consolidation of these major platforms under 3 or 4 different companies. Now they control the market, right? They control the innovation. I mean, they want, in some cases, you can't even get access to their APIs to innovate because they want to be all things to all people. And you can't, be all things to all people. So from my perspective, I'm right there with you. I think, I work with startups every day in advising them and helping them get into healthcare organizations, because I do think we need more diversity in these technologies. And I do think we need to challenge our healthcare leaders to say, these aren't the only answers out there. There are other solutions that actually can deliver better services and solutions for your organization. And you're actually stifling innovation because you're not allowing them to be a part of the equation as well.
You know what it reminds me? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we still talked about the EMR as a barrier to innovation. We're still there. So you're right. They don't, Epic or Cerner, now owned by Oracle, do not want to provide the APIs for the innovation. They want to control it. But the technology actually here does have some role in this game, because the technology goes around the EMR and start building different systems that can extract the information, can do something else, so the doctor doesn't have to log into 2 systems at the, when he sees a patient. So there's a lot of barriers that were there before that the new technology actually goes around. So that's where AI, maybe machine learning or other, not every algorithm is an AI, right? So we just use it as I guess for algorithms, many people use it, so they don't understand the intelligence of it. But I think technology actually we are at the beginning of this revolution, that technology can go around the EMR and actually build this predictive analytics, this matching of therapies, helping augmenting the physician's work. I don't think technology will will replace the physician or the teams, but it will help. And what we said before, that it's coming to the home to empower patients. I agree 100%. You can see now that one of the strong trends, actually what Charles mentioned, is that it's going home, that the lot of things that patients can do that don't need to go. But now we grew up in this culture that the doctor and the nurses need to see us. And there was a shift after COVID to telehealth. So we're getting used culturally to take care of ourselves, and some things we can do, but we still need the doctor. We're still trying to schedule appointments. We still, as patients, as caregivers, as people working in the ecosystem. So the ecosystem is slowly changing, slowly, slower than the government maybe.
I think it's time to.
I was going to quickly comment. I don't think it's a technology problem, quite honestly. There's tons of technologies out there that can solve these issues. It's a leadership issue. It's a willingness to say, I'm going to adopt these technologies. I'm not going to keep just using the same legacy solutions and making the excuse, well, if you're not connected to this technology, then I can't use your solution. Or I'm afraid that if I use you, you're going to impact someone else's life, or it's not as reliable. I think that's sometimes, quite honestly, a cop-out for healthcare leaders, in that they're unwilling to want to continue to innovate. And like I tell them all the time, every technology has a life cycle to it, just like anything else in life. It has a beginning where it has a lot of value to it, but over time, if it doesn't evolve, it will die. It will have a life. I mean, it will die out at some point. It will not provide value, and it will be a point of diminishing returns. You have to always think about refreshing your technology as a part of doing business now. You are a technology company that delivers healthcare now. So start thinking that you have to continue to innovate. You have to continue to look and push the envelope. And you may implement something today, it may not meet your needs, but then fail fast and move on. Don't say, oh, well, I'm not going to do it anymore because that one piece of technology didn't work for me. It's a part of the process of learning and growing and getting better at using these things and being a part of the process of providing input into it as well. So I'm right there with everyone in terms of we need to have our healthcare leaders need to embrace these technologies. IT is the next utility. It's just like the water and the lights in the building. You got to have it. So stop, bitching and moaning about it.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to figure out how to maximize it and know that you got to keep up on the latest and greatest in order to continue to stay competitive.
Hey, Tom, I got a question for you, and we're going to spice it up a little bit if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about the home. We talked a little bit about data, and how important it is to really understand holistically what's going on with the patient. We talked a little bit about provider challenges and the burden and the limited amount of time that they have for each patient and to truly assess them. So now if we shift this into different types of technologies in the home and passive digital biomarkers, which are unique and outside of the realm of the basic vitals, but passive digital biomarkers would be how are people behaving within the home and are there leading precursors to chronic disease that we can establish and then intervene in the comfort of the home with some type of digital technologies and med tech to deliver different mechanisms than being fully reliant on providers. So, Tom, what have you seen over the last several years that really piqued your interest from an investment standpoint, or where you see the market going in the future as we shift from hospital to more of a home care model?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's definitely the sector is definitely picking up speed. I think it was fueled by remote patient monitoring, the reimbursement codes that back remote patient monitoring. I don't think we've seen as much as there was a lot of emphasis on RPM over the last 5 years. I think utilization has still been a little bit lower than I expected. I've seen a lot of RPM on the pharma side for clinical trial management, and that's picked up some steam. But we want to see more RPM in the home, actually being used for care delivery. Right? I think the last 5 years have been a little tough. I think COVID-19 was an accelerant for RPM. Not to sound stereotypical, I think everyone kind of looks back at COVID-19 as an accelerant of digital health. But I think for RPM, it absolutely was, because I think doctors were a little hesitant about putting passive sensors or passive, biomarker tracking systems on patients, like CGM, for example, continuous glucose monitoring. They were a little hesitant to do it, but during the pandemic, when you couldn't see a patient face to face, you kind of had to do it, right? And I think everything that, Chris mentioned about provider shortages and Maytal talking about some of the AI trends, I think we're at a really interesting time where the AI is good enough to extract relevant data off the sensor. The AI is good enough to analyze the data and provide meaningful insights to the doctor. So the last thing you want to do with a doctor, from what I've learned over the years, is garbage in, garbage out. If you dump a whole lot of data in front of the doctor through an RPM platform, they're like, it's information overload. They're not, they're not paid to look at lines and lines of data. They're paid to take care of patients and improve outcomes. And so I think the AI can help analyze some of that information and provide a digestible, kind of meaningful extract to the doctor, and then it becomes actionable. In terms of what I've seen as in terms of companies or specific sensors, I think the one tailwind I've seen is in continuous glucose monitoring. I think RPM is great. I think the technology is wonderful, but the business models haven't caught up yet. CGM happens to be an exception. So there was an investment made most recently by my firm called, it's a company called BioLink out of San Diego. I don't want to shameless plug the company, but I'll take the time here to do so. They are a rock star, individually addressable, microneedle-based technology that is a patch. There's no needle. It's just a patch that goes on the arm, and it's picking up multi-analyte sensing capabilities. So it has It has aptamer sensor for glucose monitoring, and that happens to be the first use case that they're going to market with. So it's a lovely technology. It works. They're going through their FDA approval right now. The nice thing is there's a reimbursement model around it, so it's clear how they're going to make money, how providers are going to make money, and I think that's the start of it. I think that becomes the playbook for other sensing and other analyte sensing technologies.
Wow.
We see the passive collection we see that coming together, but there's no one platform. So it's going to happen in pockets of small companies. Previous company I was the chief commercial officer is actually to take to market also an RPM and passive collection of data. And you can see that I'm wearing all kinds of wearables coming together. Question is the insights. How you're right. It's not garbage in, garbage out. And the physicians themselves don't have time sometimes to really look into this information that's coming to them because it's not actionable. So you really need to think about the full, I would say, value chain from collecting this information, creating the insights, and actually educating the physicians too with the new findings and new research to make sure that they understand, not only understand those markers or data points, how to make it actionable to the patient. So I think there is still it's not yet quite end to end. It's getting there. So I don't know this company, but then I tried to do that in neuroscience for different neurodegenerative diseases, that you can see the markers by behaviors, and it's all passive collection of data. But I see it now happening. You can have those machines to sequence yourself for STDs, for multiple sclerosis, to see what markers to measure disease activities, and it's all at home. So the patient doesn't even have to go to be poked in a lab, and it's just going, IoT. So we need to think about this, how we're not trying to fix the system. And I absolutely agree that there is a leadership and ecosystem, but it's the foundation of all the healthcare system in the US, right? It's different from the UK, for instance, when it's like a big one, HMO. So it's leadership, but also the foundation and the operating model that we have in the healthcare system.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that as well. I think if you could, I was just going to comment real quick. If you continue to make these technologies profitable for health systems to adopt them, you'll see greater adoption as well too. And today, primarily because of COVID, you're starting to see the expansion of telemedicine and virtual care because of the relaxation of the laws to allow it to happen across state lines. So we have to continue to find ways to reduce some of the regulatory issues associated with virtual care. We also have to figure out how to continue to make it a much more profitable way of delivering care versus coming into a brick and mortar. And if you do that, you will see even more behavioral changes happen by providers to want to invest further and further into these platforms. We talk a lot about this term, social determinants of health, but there's another term called political determinants of health. And that is how our policies have a direct impact on the adoption of these technologies as well too. So we have to look at this thing holistically. Again, I'm very excited and bullish about everything we're talking about in terms of all these emerging technologies. But if we don't address the political issues associated with the policies, and then if we don't create a business model that makes it viable for health systems to want to adopt these technologies, because until we move to a capitated model, it's still fee for service. And so I got to make an investment in a radiology system or a virtual care system. Which one's going to pay me, more? And again, it's a business, so we got to find ways to make it a viable business for healthcare systems to want to continue to adopt these platforms.
Well, we are here.
I think.
I just
One
wanted to
last
let everyone know we got like 10 minutes. We're doing really well, doing great. Go ahead, Tom.
No, just one quick comment. I think, look, the good news is, just to wrap Charles's question, right? So it's not a technology question anymore. I think the technology's it's
That's
pretty
right.
baked. We have the ability to sense just about everything, but it's what Chris just said. There's a political ecosystem, a regulatory ecosystem, and then it has to be, the clinical protocol has to be there, right? So whatever we're sensing, whatever we're looking for, has to fit the standard of care, right? And then hopefully there's a convergence, and then the standard of care will evolve as the technology grows and expands. So I think, quite frankly, it's one of the most exciting. I think remote monitoring, multi-analyte sensing is probably the most exciting thing to look out for, and represents the future of diagnostics.
Wow. So I love what you said, the clinical protocol. So I feel like you need the payer alignment, how to get paid, the clinical protocol, and then what else do we need to make this happen?
I think the payer protocol, it's
The regulation.
Go for it, Chris. I was just going to say, the payer protocol to me is it's. I know Chris mentioned it's largely fee for service today, and I think that's largely true. You do see pockets of kind of value-based care, capitated and shared savings and yada yada yada. But I think the future of this kind of passive sensing, diagnostic to therapeutic ecosystem, I mean, it has to be value-based in nature. And I think payers need to kind of jump on they have to jump on these business models sooner rather than later. And I think it's providers and payers kind of converging into this kind of payvider model. It's again, think about it, as care shifts out of the home, who's going to have that jurisdiction? It's not really the provider. It's not really it's the payer. The payer is ultimately going to pay someone for delivering that care, but care is going to converge into on the go, following the patient, focused on the patient. And so it's sort of a platform of sorts mindsets, as opposed to a disaggregated value chain that we have today, right? I mean, we've got a long way to go, but I think that's the only way to empower this to scale.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because from a government, the government is actually putting quite a bit of money behind this. If you look at the National Institute of Health, NIH, or National Institute of Aging, as well as ARPA-H, they have a HEROES program where they're putting money behind different payment reform so they can enable different technologies for people to thrive in different models within the home, outside of the hospital setting. So I think there is a shift that's going. Usually there's comments in regards to policies and certain type of CMS guidelines that start with the public comment, and then it starts to evolve over time. So there are quite a bit of conversations going from a government perspective, and that's how it initially starts the momentum, and then the market catches up. But I think that there's quite a bit from a government perspective when you look at reimbursement and change reform that will take place in the near future. They should slowly cascade and create those tailwinds for a lot of vendors to take advantage of the innovative payment models.
Yeah, I was just going to also comment. I think concierge medicine is going to lead the way in a lot of respects, and leveraging these types of technologies. Being able to have this passive monitoring take place and focus on the wellness of strategy versus just episodic care, and that's really what that concierge model is really driven around. And then I think the non-traditional provider community that's starting to emerge, the CVSs and Walgreens and Amazons of the world, who are trying to dip their toe into healthcare, are going to be competitive by adopting these types of platforms and technologies that are going to be more cost effective for the patient, especially if someone's dealing with chronic diseases, to be able to proactively monitor their health and react to that before it becomes an episodic event.
I want to say something. The staggering statistics that there are almost no healthy people, actually, just the statistics in the US that 50% of the age of 40 plus has one or more chronic disease. to manage. It's a very expensive, it's shocking actually that 50% of 40 plus have something. And I'm just thinking, everything that we talk, who's going to pay for it? Like, I don't see a huge change in the payment model, even if it's value-based care and fee-for-service. I mean, and even in the movement towards the home, the patients pay more and more out of pocket in the US. And numbers don't make sense anymore, for the healthcare system. So I think it needs to come to a policy. Really, the policy is always coming after the innovation. It's coming after the adoption. They're always lagging, about creating the policies that's really going to help patients. But I'm not very optimistic about the money flow coming from the patient here, moving more and more towards the patient's pocket.
Well, what if you could lower the cost of care because patients are healthy within the home? Once you stabilize patients on different med devices and help them assist themselves. So let's just say that their food is taken care of and now they're eating a healthy life. That's one pillar of health. Or their medications are stable. So now all their lab data is where it should be within a normal range. So they're not utilizing all those high cost areas. Or what if there was a tracker so they have some type of movement, mobility, or exercise? There's ways to actually stabilize it at a much lower threshold than the current flywheel effect of ER visits, hospitalizations, and readmissions. So I just think it's a question of just the care coordination that needs to take place. And that's not just US based, that's all around the world, that can be reformed so we can have healthier populations. Because right now, 2 out of 3 adults in the US are on one medication or more, which is amazing. And then you start looking at chronic disease, cardiovascular disease, obesity, cognitive impairment. The threshold is far and wide. We need to do a better job of helping take care of the population as a whole, and then everything can slowly cascade out.
Yeah, the total cost of care is going to drive it. So hopefully there's going to be more of it, more of those adoption of programs like this to create even a preventative, like in a topic world, a preventative solutions to not get to those costs of chronic care. I agree.
Well, we're wrapping it up toward, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Right, and then we have to change the way we educate.
Go for it, Chris. Yeah.
No, I was just going to comment. We have to change the way we think about healthcare in this country and the way we educate our healthcare providers. We educate providers to take care of you when you're sick. We don't educate them on how to keep you well. And so their mantra is come in, you got a cough or a fever or whatever, and I'm going to medicate you, versus trying to understand how to keep your immune system strong so you don't get sick. And so we have to shift the model, even starting into medical schools, of focusing on health versus the care. There should be 80% health and 20% care, so that we start to flatten that cost curve. Because to your point, the majority of people now have one or more chronic diseases. That's not a sustainable model. Once it hits about 24% GPT, we won't be able to afford healthcare in this country anymore. It'll only be the ultra rich that can afford quality care, and everyone else is going to be at the mercy of whatever other system that exists there.
Well, we're wrapping it up. This is the last minute, last take. Can Tom, you want to start with 1 minute? Just each of you want to just go around and just for the medtech landscape, anything you want to share as a takeaway today?
No, I know, in kind of summary, right? I think just to add to the increase in chronic conditions per capita and then medication per capita, I get really nervous because you add sort of the aging population to that list, and then that just compounds the issue across the board. And healthcare is at a really, really interesting time. The provider shortage, the aging population, the increase in chronic and acute conditions, the change in care models, right? I think all of these things combined is the opportunity we have in the medtech industry or the digital health industry, right? I think these are all the kind of unmet needs, and all the innovation, all the great entrepreneurs that I'm fortunate enough to back, are we have a lot on our hands. So But I appreciate everybody just coming together and have this conversation openly, just to spread the word and inspire people.
Well, this has been great, everyone. I'm so glad you were able to come today on Planetary Health First, Mars Next, Bring a Friend series. And I think we covered MedTech. Not only did we unveil it, we pierced it and we shared it and we circulated it and we had a great talk and we're still friends. Are we still friends, everyone?
Absolutely.
Oh, of course.
Better friends.
All right. All right. Well, have a wonderful day, everyone. And I'm glad you joined Planetary Health First. Until next time, friends, make it a great day.